All right, so let's go ahead and look at, we're doing comparing and ordering decimals. And so what we talked about is that when we compare, we want to look at the greatest place value first. So the very first thing we do, let's look at what we see before the decimal. If that's the same, then we begin looking in our tenths place. In class, our example is that we would look at our dimes before we would look at our pennies. So I asked you to do 2 through 8 evens. I'm going to do a couple extra just to help you out. But again, when I'm comparing, I look at what's separated by my chunks. And so we know that we talked about how a decimal is what separates our chunks. And so let's look at where I see my whole number before. I have a 2 and a 2. Since those two numbers have the same value, I'm going to move on and look at my tenths place. Again, think 5 dimes and 5 dimes. So since I have a 5 and a 5 and they're the same, once again, I'm going to move on and look at my next place value. So I'm going to look at my hundredths place. So I looked at my tenths, now it's hundredths and hundredths. Again, I have a 4 and a 4, they're the same. So I can now move on and I can look at my thousandths place. I have a 9 and a 9, 2 and 549 thousandths, 2 and 549 thousandths. They're the same, so equal. That's pretty simple. Look at number 4. Number 4 says 8 and 25 THT, 8 and 25 hundredths, and I want to compare it to 8 and 250 thousandths. So we always look at our chunks again, look at what you see before the decimal. I have an 8 and an 8. So since my whole number is the same, I'm going to look at what do I see after the decimal. So in my tenths place, here I have a 2. Here I have a 2. Since that digit's the same, I'm going to move on to my hundredths. I have a 5 and a 5. Once again, they're the same. So what I notice here is I don't have a digit represented in my thousandths, but I do here. So in class, what we talked about is how there's actually can be an imaginary 0 there, because I know that 25 hundredths, 25 over 100, is the same thing as saying 250 thousandths, because I can multiply both of these numbers, my numerator and my denominator, both by 10, and now I have 250 thousandths. So what you'll see is they both are actually equivalent. It's the same number. We as mathematicians tend to drop the 0 at the end, but they do have an equivalent value. Let's move on and look at number 6. Number 6, I have 9 and THT, tenths, hundredths, thousands. I have 9 and 36 hundredths, and I'm comparing it to 9 and THT, 359 thousandths. So again, I always want to compare my greatest value first. I would compare my dollars before I would compare my cents. So I have $9, $9. Now I'm going to look at my tenths place and pay attention to make sure you're looking at the correct place value. I have the first digit after my decimal. I got a 3 and a 3. Since that digit's the same, once again, it's like the same number of dimes. I'm going to look now at my hundredths place. So I have a 6 and a 5. Now, because 6 is greater than 5, 9 and 36 hundredths is actually greater than 9 and 359 thousandths. Now, just a friendly hint is that you could add a 0 to the end, and you could compare 360 versus 359. I know that 360 is 1 greater than 359. So let's look at number 8. Again, I'm going to start by looking at my whole number, which is everything before the decimal. So the whole numbers are the same. And since the whole numbers are the same, I'm going to now examine my decimal. And again, I'm going to do THT, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. THT, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. I want to look at one place value at a time and compare. So I'm going to begin by looking at my tenths place. I have a 0 and a 0 because that digit is the same. I now move on and look at my hundredths place. So always greatest place value first. Now I'm looking at a 3 and a 3. Once again, since they're the same, I have to move on to that last place value, my thousandths. I got a 6 and a 5. So which is greater? Right, the 6 is greater. So what you need to do is you need to have that place value side opened up towards the 6, and we talk about how it looks like an alligator is going to eat that 6. He's eating the bigger number, and he's got his head away from the smaller number. So, boom, it's going to eat the bigger number. All right, and hey, welcome. So that's what I asked you to do in class. Again, we always start at the largest place value. I'm going to do number 10 with you just for fun, because it's good to be a good mathematician. So again, when I'm comparing, and this is telling me to order them from greatest to least, I would always start at my biggest place value. So my whole numbers are all 3s. So since they're all 3s, I'm going to look at my tenths place. So I'm just going to label these all THT, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. THT, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Oh, there's no T, but I know that I can create an equivalent by adding a 0 to the end. And then THT, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and again, 1800ths is the same thing as 180 thousandths. You just add a 0 to the end. So when I look at my tenths place, I'm looking for the greatest digit in my tenths place. So I get a 0, an 8, a 0, and a 1. Well, I recognize that 8 in my tenths is going to be the greatest, so I'm going to go ahead and write that as my first number, 3 and 825 thousandths. And then I'm going to move on, and I'm going to kind of cross that out so I don't look at it again. So again, I have a 3, a 3, and a 3. Looking at my tenths place, I have a 0, and a 1. So obviously the one greater is like having no dimes and 1 dime. I'd rather have the 1 dime. So I'm going to write that number now, 3 and 1800ths. And now I have 2 numbers left. I have 3 and 8 thousandths, and I have 3 and 9 hundredths. And I have to figure out which is going to be the bigger. So again, I have a 3 and a 3. I have a 0. I like to color code. Why not? It's pretty. I have a 0 and a 0. So since they're the same, again, I always move on to the next place value. So I'm going to look at my hundredths place. In my hundredths place, I have a 0 and a 9. So hopefully you recognize that the 9 is greater than the 0. So the 9 will go next. Oh, look, I switched colors. How pretty. And then the smallest is actually going to be 3 and 8 thousandths. And again, we talked about how you can add zeros to the end of these to create equivalent decimals to help you better see when you're comparing. And what was that last one? Oh, 3 and 8 in my thousandths place value. If you wanted to do this, you could continue on. I'm gonna look at the word problem. Number 18. In a discus competition, an athlete threw the discus 36 and 37 hundredths meters, 62 and 95 hundredths meters, and 63 and 7/10 meters. Order the distances from least to greatest. So now I'm looking for the smaller number. What I'm going to do to help me solve this is I'm actually going to rewrite those numbers so that they're all lined up. It helps me to see it better. So I have 63 and 37 hundredths. Again, I'm going to make sure that my decimal lines up. So go ahead and put my decimal for my next number, which is 62 and 95 hundredths. Or my last number is 63 and 7/10. So again, we always look at our largest place value first, which means I would start out by looking at my whole number, and I'm going to order it from least to greatest. So my whole numbers I have is 63, 62, and 63. Hopefully you would recognize that that 62 is greater than your other two 63s. So since or is less than, sorry. So since I'm ordering them from least to greatest, I'm going to put the least as 62 and 95 hundredths. And now I'm going to just whoop, 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 so I don't get confused. Hey, girl. And now because I've got a 3 and a 3, I'm now going to move on to my tenths place and compare my tenths place. So in my tenths place, I have a 3 and I have a 7. And again, it wants the least. So which one is the least? Well, hopefully you recognize that because I'm looking at my tenths place, the 3/10 is less than 7/10. But if you needed to see that lateral comparison, you could add in that imaginary 0 and see that 37 hundredths is less than 70 hundredths. So I'm looking for least to greatest, so 63 and 37 hundredths. And the last one is 63 and 7/10. So that's all for tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. I would be glad to help you. You can hear my kids. I know, they're so loud. Did you hear what she just asked for? She wants gum. Ava, you want a mystery word? Let's say the mystery word.
Can I?
The mystery word is Brooke.
Do you have gum?
Because right now Brooke is talking about gum. So that's B-R-O-O-K. That can be your mystery word. And submit that with your name. And I'm sure,
Mommy.
Ava, you're going to have that.
Mama.
One moment, love. Just go back and make sure that you're rewatching the video so that you have 2 through 8 evens complete.
I love your earrings.
Yes, Ava, you have it, the correct.
Mommy, I love your earrings.
And she loves my earrings. Yes, Ava, you have the correct mystery word. You just want to go back and watch 2 through 8, but that's at the beginning, and it's pretty short. It only took me like 5 minutes to get through those. So anyways, other than that, I will be in the classroom in the morning to help at 8:15 if you want to come in from the hallway. And have a great night, guys.
Mommy.